Good morning, folks. This is Roy Humphreys, the Rowland Heights advocate and editor and publisher of the Rowland Heights Gazette. And we have for you the very first and historical video recording of the Rowland Unified School District Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. This is a first. There are lots of changes going on in the district, and to especially the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. And at this particular point in the pre-log, I'm not going to make any editorial comment. I want you to look at it and see what it's all about. For those of you who have no background, no knowledge of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee and what's been going on in the state of California, and specifically Rowland Unified School District, this will be a very pleasant and informing type of situation. So sit back, grab your popcorn and soda pop, maybe even a hot dog here, and see things happening in real time, almost. Okay? Bye now.
Okay, folks, it's Grande. This is 225, the first recording of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, Rowland Unified School District. Right now, we don't have a quorum. We have 4 members here: Carlos Sanchez, Mike Wong, Ms. Moreno, and Mr. Peterson. And the other persons will be introduced. We have Dave Malcolm over here. He's the board's representative for these, so forth. And we have Mr. Flores over here, who is the assistant and supplier of information from the district to the Bond Oversight Committee. And we have,
I guess we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. I think we have a quorum here right now. So, that is 6:35? 6, what? 6:35. 6:35, okay. We'll do a roll call. Mr. Gilbert Alvarez? Yeah. Natalie Marino?
Present.
Yeah. Gary Peterson? I'm here. Carlos Sanchez?
Here.
Here. Mike Wong? Here. And Wendy Song? Not here yet.
Not here, but
Okay.
she would wait.
If you don't mind, I'd like to ask Mrs. Carlos Sanchez to lead us in flag salute.
Hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, except you.
We are required to allow public comments for 3 minutes. I believe Mr. Roy Humphrey would like to speak.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Hello. Is this thing working? It doesn't work. Okay.
I don't think you need it, we can hear you.
You can hear me? Everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. You know, my name's Roy Humphreys, and I have a little statement I'd like to provide for you. As Bob Dylan says, at times they are changing. As noted, there are 4 grand jury processes going on, probes for Contra Costa, Fresno, Los Angeles, and Solano school districts. The federal government is part of one of the probes, confiscating cell phones, and the district is hiring criminal defense attorneys. This brings us to the question as to why the law, and Prop 39, created Citizens Bond Oversight Committees. Yes, history and the administration and boards of trustees of institutions responsible for educating our children simply cannot be trusted. This is especially true when it comes to money. This committee must remember that the district is responsible for setting up the committee but thereafter the committee is independent as stated and must thwart any attempts of the district to compromise that independence. This Citizens Bond Oversight Committee historically has been little more than a rubber stamp, as past member Ted Evankamp has noted on more than one occasion. Currently, several business persons who could be valuable assets to this committee and district refuse to associate with a rubber stamp and questionable integrity. Change orders, cabs, and leasebacks are cardinal flags to corruption, fraud, and incompetence. Prior member and contractor Moreno noted as when he departed that if his business had half as many of the change orders, or even a fraction of the change orders that Rowland Unified has, he would be out of business. And further, he inquired as to why we keep doing business with the same contractors who have sordid histories with it as far as performance. And Julie Mitchell was correct when she noted that we're going to continue to have change orders, because when you start out years back with incompetent contracts and planning, you live with it forever. And to think otherwise would bring about the idea of criminal wrongdoing, which is CPC 182.5. Also, you have Walter Bergman, who knows that as long as the empire can keep the pretense alive that all is right, there will be no grieving and no serious criticism. The advent of this new computer system for the bond function as part of the system tonight is welcome. However, in any system, computers, so forth, doesn't matter where it is, it's garbage in, garbage out per Terry Malcolm. It's only as good as the people running the system. This district needs a forensic audit and grand jury probe to cleanse its foul past and present course. And for those who doubt anything that I've said, it's all you have to do is go to those probes that on the grand jury probes. They're out there. I've sent them to all of you. If you choose not to open those emails and go there, then it's on you. You are public officials. You have a duty and responsibility to the public and to know this information. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Mr. Humphrey?
I need to introduce our Mr. Alex Flores, who's the Assistant Superintendent of Administrative Services. And he is a man who's doing a lot to make sure that this is not a rubber stamp commit. So thank you very much. And it's part of the agenda tonight is to move this forward. And I guess we have guests to do that. I'll let him introduce.
Well, thank you very much. I would like the staff members who are present to go ahead and introduce themselves and their role here in the school district. Starting with Addie.
I'm Addie Clinton. I work at Fiscal Service.
And Addie's role is inputting all the information into the
For the bond.
Onto
I'm
the
involved
website.
since
No,
2000.
into the software.
Yeah, under the bond software, and then I was involved in 2000 bond, and 2006 bond, and 2012.
My name is Marcus Rodriguez. I'm the district construction coordinator.
And Rita will be either my executive secretary, and she'll be taking minutes so that we have minutes for our meetings. Stuart Moe is our director of base and operations facilities. He's not here. He may be joining us. He's coming from a medical appointment. And Rosanna McLeod also is not here today. She had another medical issue. She is our director of purchasing. And also joining us for future meetings will be our director of fiscal services, Eric Hart, also. So we'll have a full team of our staff here that'll be able to be at your disposal to help you. With introductions also, hopefully everyone received their notebook. The notebook is something that is not new because this notebook is something you've all have seen one time or another, different forms of paper or information, but we try to compile it together so it's a usable tool for you. This is a working notebook. If you can see, there's a lot of slots in there that have some dates. So as we have different meetings, there'll be information for you to insert so that you can have this, so you can review it at any time. Because I know sometimes at night you want to, read something as you're going to bed. And there's something for you. And for new members, it's a great tool. I want to thank everyone here around this table for giving us the opportunity to work together as a staff and also the CBOC to function as a CBOC. This is I feel to me it's like our first meeting for me, because at the previous meeting that we had, there was a program manager that really oversaw and really was responsible for the CBOC agendas and meetings. It really should be a staff responsibility working with the CBOC. And I'm really looking forward for the opportunity for our staff to show their expertise and also work together to give all the information that is needed and provided, and we're at your disposal. So I want to thank you in advance for allowing us this opportunity to work together with you. Also, one of I want to pass out, because one of the items that, and I know some people may leave early, this people aren't passing it out, was we wanted more meeting dates. So I'm passing out, this is not an action item, but just information for you. Some proposals for more meetings in the future, with the next one being April 21st. That's the only one that we have a date. And different locations. We would like for this to be an opportunity that we have the CBOC meeting at a different school site where we're having projects done, with the next one being at Nogales. And then we have a really intense and detailed presentation on the Nogales project at that meeting. So that as we go to different locations, that will be the focal point of discussing that specific project. So with that, I just wanted to give you dates. It's not an action item. And I should have started with this, but I wanted to formally congratulate the 2 new CBOC members, and to give you an opportunity just to say a few words about yourself and a little background also.
My name is Natalie Moreno. Currently, I'm working for Los Angeles County in the Department of Public Social Services. I'm an RUSD grad. I've gone to Rowland Elementary, Blanford Elementary, Alvarado, and graduated from Rowland. I do currently have 3 children in RUSD, 2 at Blanford, 1 at Rowland High, and the middle one will be going to Alvarado next year.
My name is Mike Wong. I have over 30 years of construction experience, and I work for either direct from the hospitals, and I do drawings, pre-construction, change orders. So I'm somewhat familiar with change orders, and people are saying, there should be change orders. There's always change orders on project. I've not been to a job that has no change orders, so part of it I'll try to understand, I guess, your format here too. So
Well, we welcome your expertise. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Very good. Yeah. Let me see. I thought you were going to make the presentations for
If
the...
you would like me to, I'll
Yeah,
sure.
I'm sorry.
Okay, we're at the portion of presentations in our agenda. And again, as we discussed in the previous CBOC, we wanted to have this workshop where we had someone to discuss the role of the CBOC as a member, and what the role of staff members, the role of the board, and individually and collectively as a group. So we are very fortunate to have an expert in that area. I'm not gonna hurt her last name, Serena. She'll pronounce her last name for us. But she is an expert. She just came back from CAPS, just I think yesterday or the day before, and presenting there on different topics related to facilities and 7-Eleven committees, and anything dealing with facility and public entities. So with that, I will turn it over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Serene Abrahamian, that's how you pronounce my last name, or Abrahamian, however you prefer. Like Alex said, I think the purpose of this presentation is really to provide some background information about CDOC committees, and then also to kind of break down the roles of the board, staff, and the CDOC vis-a-vis Prop 39 and the general obligation bonds. So as our first slide, and you'll have to excuse me, I'm not a pro at operating these things, but I'm going to do my best. Just some background on Measure R. On June 6, 2006, voters passed Measure R pursuant to Prop 39, authorizing the district to issue up to $118 million in general obligation bonds. In November 2012, voters passed Measure R, authorizing the district to issue up to $158,800,000 in general obligation bonds. Thereafter, the Board of Education, I'm sure after the 2006 election, after the 2012 election, just like they're required to do, appointed a Measure R Citizens Bond Oversight Committee to oversee the expenditure of these funds. So like I said, I kind of wanted to start big picture with board responsibility and general powers of the board. The board may initiate and carry on any program, activity, or act in any manner which is not in conflict with, inconsistent with, or preempted by any law, or is not in conflict with the purposes for which school districts are established. And as you'll see, I have the Ed Code sections or the statutes that I'm referring to within the slide, so that if you need to, you can go back and look at those. I can also provide those at a later date if that's something that's requested. The board may execute any powers delegated by law to it or to the district, and shall discharge any duty imposed by law upon it or upon the district. May also delegate to an officer or employee of the district any of those powers or duties. So that's where they're referencing that there's a delegation to staff. The board, however, retains ultimate responsibility over the performance of those powers or duties so delegated. So that's important to remember as we're moving further on in the presentation, that the buck stops with the board, and that's an important element here. With regard to school facilities, so now we've moved down a layer into a little more detail. To provide facilities for the education of children, evaluate school facility needs and determine when new facilities are needed, approve additions or alterations to existing buildings, and select and acquire sites. So these are all within the purview of the board when it comes to facilities for education. Specifically as it relates to methods of financing for a Prop 39 bond measure, the board's role is to determine the scope, locations, and schedules of project, and that bond proceeds would only be spent on appropriate types of projects. Provide a list of the specific school facilities project to be funded with bond proceeds, and certify that the board has evaluated safety, class size reduction, and information technology needs in developing the project list. And I would direct you, which I think you all have it in your binder, the 2006 and the 2012 full text Measure R actually has Exhibit A1 that identifies the projects to be completed with the funds, both the 2006 funds and the 2012 funds, and it's pretty detailed, as you can see. Also, if you look at the full text of Measure R, it covers, it certifies that the board has evaluated safety, class size reduction information. That language is actually in there. Something important to remember is, like, yes, it's important that the list be specific enough that voters know what they're voting for. Obviously, when you go to vote for Measure R, you want to know what you're voting for. But there needs to be enough flexibility built in so that it can develop with the needs of the district moving forward. And because as the district moves forward in time, there might be certain needs that vary than what's been specifically identified. And so there needs to be some wiggle room, which this language does have. So next layer down, the board responsibility as far as appointing a Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. The board must establish and appoint members to an independent Citizens Bond Oversight Committee within 60 days of the date that the board enters the election results on its minutes, for both 2006 and 2012, and that language is also in this Measure R text, stated right in there. Must consist of a minimum of 7 members. Each member must serve for a minimum of 2 years without compensation, and members cannot serve for more than 3 consecutive terms. And these specifics are laid out in this committee's bylaws that I've reviewed. So no more than 6 years per individual member. Again, with regard to appointing a CBOC, the board's responsibilities. The board must ensure that the CBOC includes 1 member satisfying each category, active in a business organization, active in a bona fide taxpayers organization, active in a senior citizens organization, parent or guardian of a child enrolled in the district, and a parent or guardian of a child enrolled in the district, and active in a PTO or school city council. I'm sorry, school to the board, but the board has to be the one that approves the amendment, yes.
And would that be at a board meeting or a CBOC meeting?
The board would do that at a board meeting, but the
But
CBOC,
At a CBOC meeting, we can have a discussion,
yes.
and actually, we're planning to do that in the future. CBOC, bring some staff, bring some recommendations to CBOC, have a dialogue, and then take it to the board for approval.
I'd like more clarification on that, because from what I've seen, there are some things that I don't know which one to call it, the officials are silent on some things that they make additional comments on the laws, and it is traditional that most districts write the bylaws, because they're in charge of starting the committee, and so the members don't know what's going on really until they're on there for a while. But I don't see anything in the legislature that actually, I don't see a code or anything in the legislature that actually gives them that authority or denies the committee to write its own bylaws and set its own agenda, with the cooperation of the district. Is there some code or that I'm missing?
The bylaws are to be approved by the board. Yeah, I mean, I can find the code section for you on that and provide it. But I think what you have to keep in mind is that as each committee moves forward, you were saying that the board generally establishes the bylaws, and at that time the committee doesn't really know what's going on. But I think that's the reason why, in response to the question, I said that there can be suggestions made about things that could be applicable and should be added, as long as it's in conformance with the law and doesn't go beyond what the CBOC
Yes, and there are a lot of things that
right.
they need to, that hopefully, as part of what we're learning tonight, is what we can and cannot do.
Right, and so for instance, in a situation where you have a certain committee member has been attending a few consecutive meetings, that's something that developed after you began the CBOC, and with the, let's say, the current members that are supposed to be attending now. So you can maybe make some suggestions of how to deal with that particular situation, and that can be implemented in the bylaws. So I don't think it's supposed to just be like, oh, they dictated these bylaws and then the committee has to comply with them. I think it's an open conversation,
Right.
so that the committee can figure out what works for them.
Okay. Yeah, I just hopefully want the committee members to understand that and know that,
Yeah.
that they are not, totally restricted.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, okay. Hopefully I answered your question. So as far as implementing the bond program, and this relates, I think, more to specific projects that are covered within the list of projects to be maybe as construction projects as we're moving forward with the projects that are identified. The board will authorize bond program budget, scope, schedule, and locations. Well, that comes early on as you're determining the list of projects to be approved. Approve the selection of architects, engineers, and other consultants as needed. Obtain requisite approvals of the design of facilities improvement projects. Determine the method of payment for construction contracts. Authorize all contracts and all changes to contracts, and accept completed projects. And in terms of board responsibility for implementing the bond program, and this relates specifically to bond funds, the board shall ensure that proceeds from the sale of bonds are used only for the purposes of construction, reconstruction, rehabilitation, replacement, furnishing, and equipping of school facilities, or the acquisition or lease of real property for school facilities. And these are constitutional requirements, and not for any other purpose, including teacher and administrator salaries and other school operating expenses. And I'll get into, there's been some discussion about this last piece and some, I wouldn't say super recent, but generally recent determinations about how that's interpreted, which I'll get into a little bit later. The board shall ensure that bond funds have been expended only on projects included in a list of the specific school facilities projects to be funded, and that's the bond project list that I referenced earlier. That's in the Measure R text.
I have to be a pain again here.
That's okay.
The way I read Education Code 15264, 1576, and other ones besides that, and Constitution, the board shall ensure bonds that have been expended. It doesn't read that way. It reads are being, as opposed to have been, because have been is past tense, and that would indicate that you're making sure that things that have already been done, aren't being done, as opposed to looking at things that as they are in progress. So, to me, this is incorrect.
Okay, and you're referencing the second bullet point, board shall ensure that bond funds have been expended
Yes.
only on projects included in the list. So you're saying as they're moving forward, it's their responsibility to make sure that.
It's a common error. I've seen it in other places, but it has come up in other things like the California League on Oversight committees and things like that. This issue has come up, and they have determined, as far as I know, that our being is correct, and it was put there deliberately to indicate that it is not a past tense.
And that makes sense given the fact that they're receiving audits and having audits done on a yearly basis, and that's being shared with the committee as well as the board. And so, yes, it's an ongoing function, and this might be a little bit.
It was kind of a sore point with me because, we were only meeting every quarter, and, and how could we have any, say so about something that happened 3 months ago, Thank you.
Okay. But what I did want to do is I realized as I was going through this that, because once I get through the board responsibilities as far as implementing the bond program, I'm going to jump over to the CBOC so you can see kind of the contrast or like what the delineation is in responsibilities. I think that'll make it a little easier, but you'll see as I move forward. I just want to get through this real quick. and then
Okay,
I'll-
sorry.
Okay. No, that's okay. So the board shall conduct an annual independence performance audit to ensure that the funds have been expended only on the specific projects listed. So we keep going back to that list of projects. The board shall conduct an annual independent financial audit of the proceeds from the sale of the bonds until all the proceeds have been expended for the school facilities projects. So a performance audit, a financial audit. And the board shall, without expending bond funds, provide the CBOC any necessary technical assistance, administrative assistance in furtherance of its purpose, and sufficient resources to publicize the committee's conclusions. And Alex touched on some of what's going to be happening vis-a-vis that last point. And then also that definitely relates to staff's role in assisting the CBOC. So what I was saying earlier about jumping over, I wanted to jump to slide 2. It might be difficult for you to follow, but I apologize because the slides aren't numbered, but I'm going to move over just because I want to show you, now that we've laid out the board's responsibility, or how the board implements the bond program, when the CBOC reviews what the board, reviews the audits and is doing their piece of the review, what their obligations are. So I think the distinction here that sometimes gets confused a little bit is that the CBOC must advise the public. The CBOC must advise the public as to whether the district is in compliance with the following accountability requirements. So what we were talking about earlier, the proceeds from the sale of bonds be used only for the purposes of construction, reconstruction, rehabilitation, replacement, furnishing and equipping of school facilities, or the acquisition or lease of real property, and not for any purpose, including a teacher and administrative salaries and other school operating expenses. So whereas we're saying the board is responsible to ensure that the proceeds are being used for these purposes, the CBOC's responsibility is to make sure that the district is in compliance with their accountability requirements and to oversee that and make sure that that's actually happening the way it should be. And obviously the audit is part and parcel of that, and all of the various things that are set up to.
Can I interject something? There was a discussion about how do we advise the public. So just brainstorming this afternoon with Harry, we thought about, since we're going to have additional meetings, the opportunity to whoever the chair is, and quarterly throughout the year, come to a board meeting and make a report on what the CBOC is doing. And that would be a quarterly meeting that would include staff making a presentation on facilities, staff making a presentation on the budget, and using the technology we're using, and then also whoever the chair would be to make a presentation also. So this way, that's one of those ways of advising, speaking to the public. There would be minutes, and it would be memorialized. I think that's a good idea.
Very good.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. And what I was saying earlier about, so that last piece here where we're talking about teacher and administrative salaries and other school operating expenses, the California Attorney General has clarified in an advisory opinion, which we move to the next page.
I hope I have a question.
Yes.
In the audit, there is almost $250,000 that was spent on salaries and benefit packages. How does that fall in line and not as an administrative salary?
Well, I haven't seen the audit, but maybe Alex.
Well, you can have expenses for people who are overseeing the bond contract.
Right.
You have staff, I think it's in the presentation.
That's.
No, I see that in the second bullet point, but I'm not understanding the difference between
If you would like-
overseeing the construction project versus administrating.
If you would like, we could probably itemize who is being funded out of the bond, so that we could share that at a future meeting.
I think for transparency.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, and when I said I haven't seen the audit, I thought maybe that's already in there, so that way it would be easier for you to tell.
It's
that
just
way
a
that-
lump sum figure,
Okay.
but with no explanation of
Yeah.
it.
So if you look on the next page, and I hope you guys are all following now, and I know I moved around and I apologize for that, but I thought that it was important to kind of make this distinction. These are some quotes from the AG opinion. If you look at the second one, basically the gist of it is that oversight work on construction project authorized by a voter-approved bond measure, employees performing that, that doesn't fall within the restrictions of the bullet point on the previous page. So I think that's the distinction that we're looking for. For instance, monitoring contracts and project funding, overseeing construction progress, and performing overall project management and accounting that facilitates timely completion of the construction project. And I can provide a copy of the AG opinion if that's something that would help.
Would that be something everyone would like?
I would.
Okay, so if one person gets it, we like to give to everyone.
Because if you're reading just the bond language, it doesn't go into the exceptions.
Yeah, this is an AG opinion, so it wouldn't necessarily be in the statutes, but yeah, I think this issue of what administrative salaries are covered is what we
Exactly.
wanted to examine.
Because if there's not supposed to be any administrative salaries, why are we spending money on salary and benefits.
Okay, and so here, again, just to kind of put things back in perspective, the CBOC responsibility in advising the public, we went through the first bullet and then the AG opinion, but there's other responsibilities as well. That the district has provided a list of the specific school facilities projects to be funded and certification that the board has evaluated safety, class size reduction, and information technology needs in developing that list. So when we were talking about the board's responsibilities earlier, we said that they have to provide all those things, make sure those things are provided, and then the oversight comes from the committees to ensure that that's actually happening. That the board has conducted an annual independent performance audit to ensure that the funds have been expended only on the specific projects listed. And like I said, there may be some wiggle room in the language of, like for instance, in the Measure R text, when you look at Exhibit A1, there is some wiggle room language, but it gives you a general idea of what's supposed to be covered. And that the board has conducted an annual independent financial audit of the proceeds from the sale of the bonds until all those proceeds have been expended for school facilities projects. So, I'm sorry, but now I'm going to go back to staff responsibilities. Like I said, I wanted to draw the distinction between board and CBOC, but now I think I could go back to this to staff responsibilities. So the staff responsibilities vis-a-vis the CBOC is, they report to the board and the CBOC, provide administrative and technical assistance to the CBOC, including administrative and technical assistance for compliance with the Brown Act, assistance with the preparation of regular reports on committee activities with at least one report issued each year. So that's the annual report that you see throughout this presentation. Making all documents and minutes available on the district's internet website, which I believe they have been and are going to be.
Trying to work on making it a little easier to get to though.
And I want to say this is, so as far as carrying out the bond program, the staff's responsibility under board direction is to select consultants for recommendation to the board, recommend to the board the budget, scope, schedule, and locations of bond program work, oversee and assist in the design of bond program work to meet the district's needs, and oversee and implement the bidding and other procurement of construction projects. Recommend to the board the award of contracts for the low responsible bidder for each formally bid contract, or best value qualified respondent for each leaseback contract. Oversee and implement the performance of bond-funded construction projects. And then the last bullet relates back to the audits. Under board direction, implement selection of financial and performance auditors. I know we covered this a little bit because I jumped over to that, but just in terms of a general overview, the role of the CBOC, and again, going back to this whole making sure that the accountability requirements of the board are complied with, and to inform the public concerning the expenditure of bond revenues. That's the primary oversight on expenditures of Measure R funds. Inform the public concerning expenditure of bond revenues, and actively review and report on expenditure of taxpayers' money for school construction. And this generally occurs in the annual report that's prepared and submitted by the CBOC.
I need to get past again.
That's okay.
I don't know if this is the proper place or later when we get into the committee rules or whatnot, but it is very common, for them to quote the Education Code 15278. It is not very common for them to quote the Education Code 15264, which reads, Section A, vigorous efforts are undertaken to ensure that the expenditures of foreign nations, including those authorized pursuant to paragraph 3 of subdivision B of section 1 of Article 13A of the Constitution, are in strict conformity with the law. They generally don't put that in there, but, you know, I just have to interject that, you know, to know that that's what we're charged with. The bond oversight is to vigorously, you know, pursue any improper expenditures and vigorously report it. Okay? That's
Yeah, and more, in fact, it says,
right.
the members of the Oversight Committee must promptly alert the public to any waste or improper expenditure of school construction bond money, and that unauthorized expenditures of school construction bond revenues are vigorously investigated, prosecuted, and that courts act swiftly to restrain any improper.
You don't see this too often, but it is an education code.
No, it is, right, yeah, there it is, under legislative intent. As far as permitted activities and CBOC responsibility, receive and review copies of the annual independent performance audit and financial audit that we've been discussing throughout this presentation, at the same time that they are submitted to the school district no later than March 31 of each year. And that's a relatively new time frame that's been incorporated, that is happening simultaneously, but I think that's helpful in keeping the process open and transparent. The district shall provide the CBOC with any responses to any and all findings, recommendations, and concerns addressed in those audits. Receive and review copies of any deferred maintenance proposals, plans, or reports developed by the district.
Question about the audit. Is there a reason why it's done by sample?
Well, it's done by
Sample. In reading the audit, it was sampled. The expenditures were sampled.
Different levels of audits, different price levels. They do the minimum, comply with the law. That stands right.
Well, they have to follow what the law is
Yes,
for
right,
the
right, to
audit.
comply with the law, yeah.
So, I mean, it's usually is samples. All your-
Well, I'm just familiar, surprising myself with this, and I was wondering if there was a specific reason.
Later on, there's some videos that I'll
Only if they open this.
direct you to watch.
They open up, that's the one, sorry.
Additional permitted activities of the CBOC. Review efforts by the district to maximize bond revenues by implementing cost-saving measures, including but not limited to all the following. Mechanisms designed to reduce the cost of professional fees. Mechanisms designed to reduce the cost of site preparation. Recommendations regarding the joint use of core facilities. Mechanisms designed to reduce costs by incorporating efficiencies in school site design. And recommendations regarding the use of cost-effective and efficient reusable facility elements. That's all laid out at Code 15278. So again, as far as delineating responsibilities and so that it's clear, because sometimes it does get a little bit confusing between board and district, board district versus CBOC roles. So the CBOC does not have the authority to participate in district's actual bond sale and issuance process, make decisions regarding the timing, terms, or structure of a bond issuance, select or participate in the negotiation or bid process for contractor or consultants for bond projects, visit construction sites without prior permission of the superintendent, who reserves the right to determine frequency and timing of visits. That said, though, I mean, for the most part, obviously, they have a right to be on, at certain points when the requests are made to be on site. It's just a question of coordinating that and scheduling it at the appropriate time. Contact district contractors and consultants without prior permission of the superintendent. So just going back to the conflict of interest and just making sure that you don't have self-interested parties who are serving on the CBOC. Government Code Section 1090 prohibits a public officer or employee from being financially interested in any contract made by the officer or employee in his or her official capacity. And Government Code 1125 at SEC is the local agency statute that prohibits public officers from holding incompatible offices. And your bylaws do make reference to conflict of interest rules, and that's important. It's in there. It could be expanded upon, in fact, a little bit, but it is in there. And so we covered this. Again, I'm sorry that I jumped around a little bit, but I wanted to have that early distinction that I made. Okay, so Brown Act. And my understanding is there was a thorough Brown Act presentation in January, which I would direct everyone to, but this just kind of gives you a quick update, kind of refreshes your memory a little bit about what the requirements are. The CBOC must conduct all business and meetings in compliance with the Brown Act. The purpose of the act is to keep the public informed of the actions, debates, and views of locally elected representatives, and to provide the procedural framework for local legislators to meet, debate, act, and listen collectively to their constituents.
And for our new members that weren't able to make it, we'll send a copy of the Brown Act presentation for your review.
It's like a handbook, a reduced version of it. If they could have, I don't know.
I have it from
Okay.
last time.
The presentation, or are you talking about referring to the book?
Yeah.
Don't have the book, but I have the slides if somebody wants to make a copy.
I've seen a
Small book,
small
yeah.
notebook.
I don't know. Just a thought. Especially old people, I can't remember.
So the meeting place must be within district boundaries with limited exceptions. Meeting place must be accessible to the public. Teleconferencing must be, if this is done via teleconferencing, it must be from publicly accessible location. At least a quorum must be within district boundaries. And any person attending may videotape unless disruptive. As far as the reporting requirements of the CBOC shall issue regular reports on the results of its activities. Meeting minutes are a good way to do that. That informs the public of what's being discussed at the CBOC meetings. Issue a report at least once a year. That's the annual report we've been talking about. And make available on the district website the minutes of all CBOC proceedings and all documents received and reports issued. And that would be done with the assistance of staff, and that's their role as far as the CBOC is concerned, is to assist in those types of activities.
You put, against any rules to put on the website unadopted minutes of the past meeting? Or just not recommended?
Yeah, not recommended. Well, it should be the adopted minutes.
Okay.
Because that can create some confusion.
I forget.
I know you've been kind of asking and answering questions throughout, but if anybody has any other questions, or if questions come to mind, you can always submit them to Alex. If you want any of the code sections that I've cited in this presentation, I can provide them. Any additional information you need, I'm available to answer questions.
Just in your knowledge, do you know of, like, historically, since these CBOCs have come into existence, that there have been problems in other cities that you know, that the CBOC has uncovered that's actually made a difference? Well, I'm asking her. Yeah, I know you think that, but.
I mean, I don't have a specific, and I'm being honest, I don't have a specific example that comes to mind. I am sure that that's happened because, you know, if you have a CBOC that's doing their job, there could be things that come out that maybe aren't, I don't even know so much if it's, you know, like, sometimes like as far as like when you're reviewing legal documents, you know, sometimes you find that one thing that's like mind-blowing or blows the case apart. I don't know if it's something along those lines, but I mean, for the most part, if there's a way in which things are being done that maybe could be done a little bit differently, I think that's where the CBOC could assist in like as far as the audits go, the performance audit, the financial audit, to ask the right questions, to make sure that things are being covered the way that they should be. In that respect, I think that's where the CBOC really plays an important role. But in terms of like something that's happened recently.
Well, no, it's just that in the San Gabriel Valley, you know, the last 5 years, it's been like a lot of press about certain cities, and not educational departments, but like certain cities like Bell, which is not in San Gabriel Valley, but Bell, Irwindale, you know, like a lot of these cities that have had contractors that are family. There's one next door, you know, that's right now been in the news a lot, and that's the only thing. I mean, I've heard of those, but I'm not as familiar about the educational systems, you know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It just doesn't seem like the corruption is just rampant, but maybe I just don't know.
And I really hope that it's not.
Yeah, I hope not, yeah.
And at least as far as this particular CBOC and this particular Measure R bond funds, I mean, I think every effort is going to be made to keep a transparent process moving forward, and I think Alex has presented some ideas on doing that. So to the extent that the committee has other ideas, I think it's a good forum to make those requests and to make those recommendations to staff. That's part of what goes on here. And I know Alex is listening, so.
She's taking notes. Are there any more questions?
Was it going to walk over to some other areas like the bylaws? I thought they were going to. No?
Well, we have 45 minutes and we already kind of extended. We had also the fiscal
Okay.
portion of it.
Okay.
I want to thank you for your presentation on a lot of information. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to working with you in the future, and maybe coming back with any specific questions or any issues to continue this conversation. And I would appreciate the AG.
Okay, sorry.
I would appreciate the AG opinion if that would be sensible, because that's all the numbers.
I have it right here, I will give it to you.
Thank you.
I have one final question. I looked on the internet and I see they used to represent the construction industry. No, the firm?
No.
No? No, I looked it up wrong. Okay.
Public agencies
Okay.
in construction, not,
Okay, if it did, then I was wondering, well,
Not
who did we have to
contractors.
thank for your contribution?
In fact, your firm actually does represent school districts.
yes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what we represent school districts. for the most
That'd
part.
be a conflict of interest, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah.
Our second presentation is Larry from Holy Technologies. And I want to, do you need some help with the setup? It's your computer, hopefully you got it. As I shared with the past CBOC meetings, and then I saw the actual fiscal presentation that was made, which was basically, you guys were approving a slide from the facilities presentation. I felt it lacked the depth that I would like to see for the committee to be able to have as we sail through this journey of making sure everything is done correctly. So, working with Larry, I asked if we could look at his software and really work on us together developing some software that we could have twofold. so that we could have the bond project, the bond 2006, bond 2012, a comprehensive analysis of the fiscal of it, what's encumbered, what's been spent, and the different projects, and then going down a little deeper by project and having the same format for it too. So that when we go ahead and we accept the financial reports at our meetings, you'll see what we'll be doing instead of a slide of a presentation, but an actual form. And I want to take it a further step and actually, because it's our software, we can run the report anytime we want. So I want to take it a further step on the months that we don't have a meeting, just to go ahead and monthly send it to you. Send it to you as information so that you have it. It's as alive as possible for you, so that you have all information. And then I do want to thank Addie for it. Addie is the one who inputs everything for us in our district for the technology. But and I want to thank also Larry for listening to my concerns, just to make something that's really user friendly. And so what Larry's going to do today is going to talk a little briefly about his program, his system, what it can do, and then go into depth into the actual form we would like to use in the future here, to form that we'll use that you'll be accepting. So you will do that. Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you much. I've got just a couple of slides here. I don't know if there's a handout or not, but there's not too many slides, so it shouldn't be much. Real quick about Kobe Technologies, we've been around since 2002. Basically, I started off working for a school district and building schools back in the 80s, and found that there was nothing at the school level to help me do my job. And so over time, we figured out how to do that, working with Letty Boggs, who was assistant superintendent in Anaheim Elementary School District. We figured out a way to do that, and then we turned it into a piece of software in 2002. We've been around for quite a while. We're currently in about 100 school districts, managing about $21 billion now in construction. It's gotten up to $11 billion of completed work, about $1 billion of active contracts in place right now. On average, we have well over 100 people logged into our software, using it to manage contracts and track transactions and so on. We also have some on-site accountants working at a number of school districts that help them. And we also do a little bit of client services as well, helping out school districts kind of put together their programs. So that's a little bit about us. Talking just a little bit about successful building programs, because that's really what our goal is to help districts have a successful program. So this is kind of my thoughts on what that is. The number one thing is, if you're going to have a successful program, you've got to deliver on your promises. And the only way you can do that is if you have a really tight internal controls. Okay, I'm going to talk about internal controls a little bit later. And if you've read those audits, they talk about internal controls too. The next one, you want to have clean audits, okay? And you need to gain the community trust. Again, tight internal controls, but also transparent reporting. Just a little bit about internal controls. Just to look at it very, very simply, these are kind of guiding principles. So if you never approve a budget, or if you never have a budget that exceeds the amount of money that you have, that's number one. So when you add up the budgets for all your projects, you can't exceed the amount of money you have. I mean, that's common sense. The next thing is, you don't issue any contracts that are larger than your budget, okay? And you never make a payment that's larger than the contract amount. So that's the real principle of internal controls, and it's how that instruction, as you indicated, there's always unforeseen conditions, there's always change orders. So there's always going to be adjustments and movements and that sort of thing, but basically you need to abide by those principles, okay? If you need to adjust the budget, then you need to find the money to support the changes in the budget and so on, okay? So it's really kind of complying with those general rules. We built our software to kind of facilitate and give you some tools to do that. So we have project budgets, our budgets have not only expenditure budgets, but also funding budgets. Where is the money going to come from for each and every project, okay? We also support scheduling, but not in scheduling in a traditional sense. Really, when it really gets down to it, it's all about the money. You have no money, you have no project, okay? So scheduling projects, the main constraint is, what do I have the money to take on this project? Okay, so we really help kind of schedule things out based on the cash flow and when you have money available. And that's all about our cash flows. Real-time budget monitoring. One of the things that Addie does is everything that happens in the way of issuing a contract, changing a contract, or requesting a payment, it all goes through the software, and the software tracks everything. We're really kind of We're set up to be kind of a front end to the accounting system, so we try to capture that information and vet it, okay? In other words, test it out against these criteria here before it gets committed into the accounting system, okay? That's real critical, because now you have kind of a balance, balancing mechanism to do that. So we track change orders, purchase orders, contract allowances, okay? Contract allowances are interesting because they're a way to kind of make it look like you have fewer changes than you really have. And stop notices, those are things where contractors not paying their vendors and that sort of thing. There's requirements the district has to comply with that. It's an expenditure, but meanwhile you can't pay it out. So we track all of that detail all the way along. Expenditure management really has to do with that. One of the things that we used to work for LAUSD for a while. And one of the things we taught all our people is, you want to work with a big bureaucracy, you make friends, okay? So typically what happens, a contractor, you know, he's got a couple stop notices outstanding, and so he gets paid, and he's paid short because the district has to hold money back for those stop notices. Well, what he does, he calls up a friend in the district and say, hey, they paid me short, and gets paid, okay? Well, basically, that's what expenditure management's all about. Is we don't want to make sure that no payment can go out if there's something that needs to be withheld from the payment. So that's what expenditure management's all about. Once we have all that information together, we have all that information that we need to make good, transparent reports. Status reports for the Oversight Committee and also management. So a little bit about our guidelines, if you will, for reports. A good report tells the story that needs to be told, okay? And it has to be credible. So let me talk just a little bit about the story that needs to be told. We talked about internal controls. When you read an audit, there's a section in there where the auditor will talk about they looked at internal controls. They did that to see whether or not anybody's looking at these things and making sure you comply with all those rules. That's what it's all about. So here is the way we do this, as simple as we can. Budgeted. That's your planned expenditures. Okay? That's what your plan is. Committed is, that means you went out and you actually entered into a contract, which means that you intend to pay off on that contract as the work's completed. Okay? So that's part of your control mechanism, right? And then expended, this is what's expended against the contract. Real simple. Budget, committed, expended. And here we break it down. There's different ways of breaking this down, but one way that a lot of people in construction will look at it is site cost. That's if you're buying a new site, okay? Buying a site's much different than construction. So we kind of break that out. Site costs. These are purchase costs, relocation costs, environmental protection, you know, toxic cleanup, all that sort of thing. Soft costs. Okay, before you can build something, you have to design it. Okay, you have to inspect it. Okay, you have to test things and that sort of thing. Those are all soft costs, okay? It's not brick and mortar. Hard cost is brick and mortar. That's the hard stuff that goes in. The stuff you can pound your fist on or whatever. Contingencies. I said before, in construction there's always unforeseens. You've got to have something in your back pocket.
So when are you going to start this procedure or this software?
It's in use right now.
Is it right?
Yes, sir.
How long has it been?
Rowland is one of our older clients.
We used for 2001, since 2001. bond
So what's different here?
that
what's
we
that?
used in 2016.
It's been in use since 2000.
But the
Yes.
software has been attractive, but we've never used we never used any of the reports for the committee.
Okay.
So that's what's new, is we're using the actual software that generates reports as a tool for the committee in the future to be able to be seen how the money to be spent.
Okay.
We appreciate it.
Okay. So, at any rate, budget committed expended. This here gives you a little bit more, a deeper level into the budget status. Well, here's the initial budget. And by the way, this is obviously not a project here, this is just a sample data. But initial amount, approved changes, okay? These are changes that were made to the budget to increase it for whatever reason. So there's usually a story behind that, okay? And you can talk and ask questions about that and explain what are those changes for. And these are pending changes here. And you can see here, this one, what happened in this particular project actually is they wanted to hang on to that money, so they got the work done and they ended up pulling that money out and putting it into another project, okay? So that's kind of our budget status. We throw in some other numbers too. When construction, you talk about how much is your hard cost. This is 66%, 2/3 of the cost for hard construction. Okay, the other third is for soft costs. That's a pretty good percentage. This here is what we call a progress chart. It works kind of like the thermometer that you see out of a charity when they're trying to get to their goal. Okay, so the scale here is a percentage of your budget. Okay, so this is a percentage of the budget. You see here, it looks like we have something that's gone over budget a little bit. So this is budget committed, so that's your contracts, okay? And this is budget expended. So what it gives you is an idea of how many of the contracts against your planned expenditures have you actually awarded, and then how much have you spent of those awarded contracts. Okay, so it gives you, once you understand what it's saying, you can look at this very quickly and say, hey, they're not buying any sites. It looks like they've awarded most of their contracts for soft costs, hard costs. That's worth the question there. What's going on there? How come we awarded more contracts than our budget said? Okay? That is kind of half the report. Let's kind of go down to the bottom. Down here, we also see kind of a breakdown as well on the committed status. So we have the initial contract amounts, and then those contract changes, okay? 20%, a little bit high. Might want to tell the story behind that. And what this particular district did is they awarded their architectural contracts just for the initial design, okay? And that's all the contract was for. Once the initial design was done, they went to the board, and if the board approved the initial design, they'd get the contract to go ahead and complete the design, okay? Well, the initial design is a small part of the overall design cost, and so some of the costs were a little bit, the changes were a little bit high. That was the way that they chose to do it, but again, that affects some of the numbers, and you need to explain some of those numbers sometimes, okay? And then you also see unencumbered contract amount. What that is, and this used to bother me when I first went to work for a school district. You know, I went to a board meeting, and the purchasing officer was explaining to the board that, and Larry over there, we had to commit $4 million because he just awarded a contract. And I just about had a heart attack because I just awarded a $10 million contract. What's going on there? Well, the contract was going to last over 2 years. $4 million was enough to get me through the fiscal year. And so they encumbered $4 million against a $10 million contract, okay? It's a difference between encumbrance and commitments. So what this says is you've got a contract out there you haven't issued, you haven't encumbered some money against it, okay? So a lot of detail in some of these reports. Expenditure status. Well, there's $11 million spent there, but you haven't paid that much. You can see there you've paid out 11.7, and well, it looks like you have a credit that you're processing. Okay? So you have stuff that's going on every day as you're processing paperwork and that sort of thing. So you have process and payment. District held retentions. When a contractor does $1 million worth of work, he's not paid $1 million. He's paid he's paid 95% of that. And you hold on to that 5% until everything's closed out and everything's good, and then you release that last 5%. Okay? That's the way it works. It's the law. Okay? Construction withholds. Those are where the contractor's not been paying their vendors. Okay? The vendor's sending a stop notice, and the district's required to hold that money until the contractor gets with the subcontractors or vendors and resolves that payment process. Okay? It's a way that big government, the school districts kind of protect the little guy, the subcontractors and so on working for a general contractor. Okay? Funding status. This is what the Oversight Committee is most interested in. Okay? These are the different funds that went into the project. Now, you're responsible for looking at the expenditures for the bond. Well, you notice here, number one, they got 2 bonds, okay? But there's also some state money. If you take a look at your bond language, it says that the projects on this list, we can't guarantee we're going to finish them all because we depend on other money. We depend on some money from the state as an example. So here you can see with the state funding, there's the 2 different bond measures here that they're using to fund here, and then also a capital facilities. Doesn't look like there's a lot of money in there, but there's probably a little bit of money in there as well. The last thing on this report is the construction contracts. Now, I've been to a lot of oversight meetings, and I've gone through a lot of reports on that oversight committees look at. And a lot of times, all they ever see is the construction, okay? Our software tracks the total cost, everything. This here is a listing of the construction contracts. So it's obvious here that this district is using a multiple prime approach, where they're issuing a primary contract to all of the subcontractors, okay, all the trade contractors. And you can see here's one for electrical, I can't see, mechanical, and so on. So basically they've got all these contractors working, initial amount, the current amount, percent, the change order rate, pending changes, work in place, percent complete, contract completion date, notice of completion date. Okay? So that is kind of our standard project status report. Now, one of the things that Alec and I have been working on is to work on a good report, status report for the Oversight Committee. And this report, that report there, we thought is pretty good. And in fact, our software was in use for about 10 years before I finally got the chance to design that one. So it's a pretty popular report. Well, what his thought was, and I think it's a great idea, is a program status summary based on the same concepts. So this is the whole program, and I don't believe that these are not your numbers, but basically we run the same thing for the entire program for all the projects that are being funded out of a particular bond fund. Okay? Same sort of thing. What's been budgeted, committed, expended, and we can break that down by site costs or hard costs. If we want to break it down maybe by project phase, we could do that as well. Okay, but that's kind of a meaningful way to break it down. We can see changes in budget status, committed status, expenditure. So basically the same approach that I saw on an individual project at project level, we can roll that up and do it on an entire program level.
So I would envision this would be the cover sheet for the big picture, and then we would supplement it behind it with the actual projects of the. So this would be kind of a package that you would receive instead of a slide.
So we get a monthly report, right?
Yes.
Will they have each one detailed like this?
This would be the detailed report of each project and also overall the bond.
Okay.
And that's what you'd be accepting at your meetings. And then we start the disposal, we can send it to you monthly also. Then you would have it as information,
Right.
along with the board.
I have a couple of other samples as well of other reports that we have available. I use the initial series, but this is our consolidated budget status with drill down. And I want to kind of go over where's the credibility piece of this. And I wanted to show you where some of the credibility in some of the reports come from. This is actually an order screen And there's a lot of different ways that we can configure this. If you don't see something you'd like to see on it or whatever, chances are we might be able to do it just by the way that we're selecting our options. But this here is kind of the consolidated budget status report with drill downs. And you can see, again, it's still laid out very simply. Budget, commitments, and expenditures. We've added a couple of columns here. This is remaining against the budget from your commitments and remaining against your budget for expenditures. We can also show that as a percentage, okay? So there's a lot of different options here. Now, anybody who's familiar with Excel, you can see there's 5 levels of drill down here. So this here is obviously by campus, okay, by school site. Well, we can drill down, and now we can get subtotals by projects. So you can see at Friendly High School here, we have 4 different projects, okay? And then we know the budget committed and expended for each one of those projects, okay? We can drill down to the next level, and this is by project phase. We have our planning phase, construction, testing and inspection usually happen at the same time construction does. Furniture and equipment is usually the last step, okay? When you're starting to close everything up is when you move in all the furniture and equipment. And then project contingency, we use that. If you take a look here, you'll notice that there is a project contingency, so we're carrying a little bit of money in our back pocket to make sure we have enough money to finish the project. That's the most important thing. But there's no commitments and no expenditures against your contingency. That's just your plan to make sure you have enough money to finish the project, okay? So that is level 3, I think. Let's go down one more level. So now we're in the construction that the district accounting system uses to account for expenditures, okay? And you can see these are broken down. We have construction contracts. Here's where our actual construction contract, construction management fees, the fees to actually put some people in the field looking over them. And then other cost construction, these are other miscellaneous things, maybe small construction contracts, or just some of the miscellaneous things that you need to do to take care of that, okay? There's one more layer of detail here. And that's down by the contract. Now what this report does, remember we started off the school site, down to the project phase, down to our object codes, and now this is inside of the object code. You notice here that the budget, for budget purposes, we budget at the object code level, okay? That's what the accounting system does, and we facilitate that in our software so we can kind of budget at that object code level. And then these are actually individual contracts. So these are our commitments and expenditures on those contracts.
Would it be possible for you to make a summary? We've got a couple of business things.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
All right.
2 minutes, is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, 2 minutes. Okay, so that's the consolidated budget status report with drill down. But that's where the credibility comes from, because there's another layer behind that, and that's all of the transactional data. Okay, and it all rolls up, it all adds up to one number. Okay, the other way of looking at things are by fund. Okay, and so this is the consolidated budget status by fund. Same thing, budget, committed, expenditures, but this is by the fund. Okay, in other words, how much of this fund's budgeted, how much is committed, and how much is expended out of that fund.
And we'll be able to access this information when?
We'll be providing the
Monthly reports.
monthly report, but this is I think what Larry's trying to share with you is just the
How to read them.
well, how to read them, but how that information is used to give that cover sheet for the big, how we can go into it in depth as staff to look at things, if there's issues or there's problems too, and we can come back with something.
Very impressive.
But it's very impressive technology, but I'm sorry.
And this is a roll-up just by funds, but we can also look at individual projects and how each individual project may be supported by multiple funds as well. Okay, so a number of different ways of looking at them, but they're all geared around that idea of no budget above the funds available, no contract above the budget, and no expenditures above the contract. Okay, it all gets back to that internal control.
And I'm going to ask Larry if he will at our next CBOC meeting in April, when we got it when Dick, you weren't here, when we accept the fiscal report, if he can join us so we can go over the actual numbers for our own bond. This way, because we're conceptually, it's a lot to digest. And remember, we're looking at the first sheets that he shared as the report, but just so that he could kind of walk us through it again as we can go through, because it'll be helpful for all of us.
Question, are the reports just available, or is there a specific reason why this data has not been presented to former CBOC committees?
Well, we created that one report together based upon the software that already had a report for the project. I love the format of it and the information. So I said, well, let's make it for the big picture. And so I don't know why it wasn't fully utilized before. There's some new advances. You created some new things with your software too.
We sell the software on a subscription basis, so it's always changing. We do anywhere from 6 to a dozen updates each year. So it's always getting better.
But again, going back to the concept of our staff working with CBOC, having our meeting, before it was information received by a program manager that put together a slide and presented it. This is more staff related with this presentation to go in depth.
I'll ask you a question.
Excuse me.
3 days before the meeting, so we have time to digest them when they're issued.
We can discuss how much time you need before, but I think for sure we want Larry here for the next one to go over it.
First time.
Yes, at least for the first time.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If I could just ask one question real quickly, is there a capability of putting alerts in there? So
I'm sorry, say
rather
again?
than having to sit and look and calculate and watch, it'll automatically alert you if a certain figure exceeds in that amount, like comes up red or something like that?
Actually, at the transactional level, it does do that. So if you set up a purchase order as an example that exceeds the budget amount, you'll get a flag there.
Okay.
A lot of the reports also will have flags, particularly for the budgets. If the budgets are out of balance, in other words, the funding and the expenditures don't match, if they haven't been aged properly and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of sort of warnings in the software.
For internal controls.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all back to control.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and we appreciate the actual work you did also to develop this for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We need a motion by a committee member to accept the...
Organize ladies here.
Oh,
You want to recognize yourself?
okay, I'm sorry, Wendy. We did mark it down as being late, but in here and attendance. So-
We'll have to recognize you for the minutes that you're here.
And so you may make the motion if you like. We need somebody to make a motion to adopt the minutes of the meeting for, what the heck was it, January the 26th was our last regular meeting.
I'll let you first.
I'll second.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, and we need the vote to accept.
Aye.
Carried, I'll vote yes. Carried, okay. Everybody will read the minutes. Okay, so now I need to give the meeting back to Mr. Flores because there's a part of the agenda that I can't be a part of.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Harry for, Mr. Peterson, excuse me, for assisting us because we had a time that the last one we had a crossover where we had someone that met their term that was a chair. So we really didn't have a chair, so thank you for pitching in today and leading this. I felt it was only right that I moved forward with this. By our bylaws, we need to have a chair and a vice chair. So at this time, I would like to know if there's any nominations for a chairperson.
You nominating
I
yourself?
nominate Harry Peterson for chair.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I second.
I second.
No one second.
No other nominations? Okay, so with that, there is a second, so vote.
I vote yes.
I vote.
You're stuck with me.
I'm
Where- So, Mr. Chairperson, if you would like to do the second piece for the vice chair, I'll let you go
Okay,
ahead
yeah.
and ask for nominations at this time.
If we need a nomination for the co-chair.
No, not co-chair, vice chair.
Vice chair.
Oh, I'll never get this right. I would like to nominate Wendy Zong myself. Anybody have a second?
I'll second.
I second, yeah.
Okay. Any other nominations? Yeah. Pardon? Okay. Need a vote? All those in favor, say aye.
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 I didn't hear one down there. Did you vote? And did, pardon? Okay. Need a motion to adjourn? Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. Meeting is adjourned.
They all what? They all what?
Oh, is it April? No. Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
Very good meeting. Thank you.
So I'll be meeting with Mr. Peterson in the next few days. So if you have any ideas or anything that you would like to see at your next CBOC meeting, please let Mr. Peterson or myself know so we can get that agendized for a discussion piece. I have an invitation out to the auditor to come and talk about the audit, just so everyone knows. And again, I want to thank all our guests that were here today. Thank you so much.
Okay, folks, as promised, no editorial comment prior to the movie. But now after the movie, take a look at some issues. And that the Bond Oversight Committee for Rowland Unified School District has been a rubber stamp for decades, as noted by Ted Evankamp. Persons have not stepped up to the plate, taken the duty responsibility, and challenged this Rowland Unified School District in the manner in which they have made this Bond Oversight Committee essentially impotent. But in the recent history, and I mean very recent, with the grand jury investigations into these major school districts in the state of California, okay, maybe they got a message. It's time to clean house and do the right thing that should have been done for decades. And now we have the attorneys saying, try to educate the people, and Mr. Flores there from the district as the liaison, and saying, hey, let's educate these people, get up and make them functional, make them responsible as per the law. That's what their duty and responsibility. And these people are not getting paid. Okay? They're out there, so use their time, use it wisely. And Harry Peterson, now president of the Bond Oversight Committee, had very good issues that should have been on. And if he hadn't been there, he is what the Bond Oversight Committee should have been for decades. Say, hey, challenge them. Say, what's missing? Why aren't we doing this? Okay? And the next thing, you have the others that have been sitting back and all this time. What have they been doing stepping forward? Some of them have been making requests for data, make comments, as you noted in this section here, and that's good. We need more of that. But these people need to get into those grand jury probes, and there's a reason why that some people may be going to jail, okay, and rightfully so. What's been going on in these various other districts, and it reflects on Rowland Unified also. Moving on to the computer program. This thing has been on how long? It's been hidden. You know, Mr. Flores said, oh, we got nothing to hide. This thing's been hidden for decades. They're supposed to come out in 2000. Are you serious? And look at this. It should have been available to anybody who wants to look at it. It's called transparency. It's called public information. You know something? That's what it's supposed to be. So as elated as we are that this program is out there and supposedly, and until the persons get in and really look at the program and so forth, that and track things. This should have been out there. And after the meeting was over, the other Moreno, we have Moreno on there, Ms. Moreno now. There's other Moreno who just got off of the board, said, hey, we need a system direction. I said, here it is. Now it is happening. And why didn't it happen before? It didn't happen because you didn't have persons, i.e. Harry Peterson, doing the grunt work down in the trenches and analyzing the stuff and stepping up to the plate and say, things have got to change. They were been bullied by the administration of this district for so long. Things have got to change. So on one hand, happy, happy, happy. On the other hand, why is it going on? And it wouldn't have come to fore but for some activists who are making demands and exposing what has been going on. There's more to come, folks. Stay tuned. And hopefully the district is going to pick up the recording of these things. Then I can retire. Bye now.